Well, in Czech Republic, the development of the SUMPs, or as strategic mobility documents of the cities, doesn't have a, I would say, long history. In fact, some of the cities began preparing SUMP in, let's say, 2010 maybe, and the guidelines for the creation of SUMP were compiled, created based on the EU methodology. But what was, I think, the maybe not the main, but one of important, I would say, impulses for creation of SUMP, or another similar document which we call Strategic Urban Mobility Framework, was the negotiation of the operational programs for EU funds for the period 2014 to 2020. The Commission, in fact, firstly insisted on the condition that all the cities which would draw the funds for urban mobility project should have SUMP completed and approved by, I think, by the end of 2016. Which we in fact didn't find very realistic, because in fact it's development of SUMP is a process which requires a lot of discussions with the public, a lot of service studies and so on. So we agreed then that as a first stage of SUMP development, so-called Strategic Urban Mobility Framework, or SUMP, will be a condition for the cities based on which they would be eligible to submit projects for urban mobility. In fact, this document mostly covers the development of public transport and cycling infrastructure, and I think most of the cities above 50,000 inhabitants in Czech Republic have already prepared it, or are in, I would say, very, or the preparation is in quite a very mature stage. So I think what was quite surprising for us in case of some cities was in fact the interest of public in creation of such document, and even more sometimes even the let's say the colleagues at the cities were surprised by I would say quite let's say radical approach of the public to the possible change of the let's say mobility framework in the city as such, that because usually the Czechs, we tend to be rather conservative, and we expected that in most cases it will be just slight adjustment of business as usual, but in some cities really the people feel that a change has to be done, and not only in terms of solving let's say urgent problems, but also in, let's say, more let's say visionary meaning. The SUMP, as we generally understand, is a document not only for, let's say, identifying problems and needs, and defining appropriate activities for, let's say, development of let's say physical infrastructure or transport systems. We understand it as it's really a document which defines the strategy to in fact shift the notion of mobility in the city towards a different level. Document which defines the needs to change the approach also in the area of spatial planning, in the area of let's say soft measures to the mobility, like car sharing, bike sharing, and other such systems. And as a result, it also in a longer term perspective, in fact, change also the transport behavior of the citizens. The SUMF is, I would say, just I would say a part of the SUMP, because well, I will not pretend that it's not a document which is, I would say, more or less technical, and that is a document that could be prepared in a shorter time than an SUMP. So this document is, in fact, requires that there should be a sound analysis of problems, of needs, and that also public should be involved, but not in a, I would say, excessive way. And this document also should base its results on a transport model, but not necessarily a multimodal transport model. I think a transport model just unimodal for public transport is enough, and the results, like the plan or the action plan, should in fact involve mainly the activities in infrastructure development or the rolling stock development, and also some, let's say, some I would say modest adjustments of, let's say, the public space in relation to the infrastructure development, and also it should be accompanied with a cycling infrastructure development plan. So in fact, this is more or less the change, the difference between SUMP and SUMF. Yeah, within the criteria of the SUMP or SUMF assessment, among other, let's say, more technical disciplines, like the quality of the transport model, also, let's say, the partnership principle application is involved. Well, we tend to talk in the language of EU funds, because a partnership is one of the principles which should be applied, in fact, in all stages of the operational program implementation. Nevertheless, we have to confess that this, in fact, the assessment is designed, let's say, for the really first generation of SUMPs or SUMFs. So in fact, we are rather not that very strict on let's say, the activities which are connected with the future, let's say, implementation of the documents. We firstly we understand, let's say, this assessment and the development of these first SUMPs and SUMFs as a, let's say, starting exercise. And also we believe that most of the cities which develop with SUMF will follow up completion of the SUMP, and that this practice will also be then more embedded also in the let's say political representations of the cities, and that also the citizens will be much more aware of let's say the systemic approach to the mobility development. Of course, I would say the final factor in successfulness of SUMP preparation and then implementation lies also on the political level. Of course, it depends where in which city is which political representation, which government and so on. And it depends on the quality of the mayors and also of the municipal, let's say, governments. But as we see in quite a lot of cases, the political representation, like mayors or let's say deputy mayors, are quite interested in the SUMP preparation. In some cases, they are very, let's say, actively consult also the ministry, and we hope and believe that due to the thing that it's obligatory that the mayor or the deputy mayor should submit the document to a deputy minister, that they will feel that this is not just one of other documents that they have to submit and that we have to check in order to get money from the EU funds. Well, the SUMP Assessment Commission, or officially it's Commission for Assessment of Urban Mobility Documents, have to assess every SUMP or SUMF which is created by the cities, and based on the criteria, in fact, verify whether this document is sufficient for substantiation of the project which will be submitted by the cities. In fact, we do not only just go through the document and check all the criteria, but we also try to formulate recommendations for further development of the document, or in some cases, unfortunately, we have to say we don't find this sufficient, but you should better elaborate this and this, and then you can come back with it, and we'll see. So also try to, in fact, support the, let's say, planning culture of the cities in the area of urban mobility. Fortunately, not all the cities are submitting the document in one moment, so usually when the Commission has its session, it's about one or three, or maximum three of these documents, and we don't have, let's say, strict deadlines when it should be assessed. So we get the documents, we say, yeah, we will see how much time this will require, and as soon as we all can say we went thoroughly through the document and we are able to assess it, then we in fact organize the Commission meeting. So hopefully it's we were afraid of, let's say, being under an avalanche of of SUMPs, but so far the Commission works without let's say significant problems. I think it's very important that, as I've already talked about, that when developing a SUMP or SUMF, the city should, let's say, avoid two extremes. One is that it's let's say purely visionary topic, and which in fact it's should be more or less abstract for the citizens, and could not bring any, let's say, visible benefits in a, let's say, reasonable time horizon. I think that such document probably would be in fact sooner or later, in fact, like rejected by probably the next political representation, and in fact couldn't change anything. The other extreme that the cities, I think, should avoid is, let's say, understanding sustainability, just like sustaining the business as usual, and let's say, only following the problems without any vision. Like, for example, we have lack of parking places. Okay, let's do more. We have traffic jams in the streets. Okay, let's then make them wider. Yeah. So this, in fact, doesn't bring also any change, and it's just only shifting the problems to another and even worse stage. What I think is important is that there should be a balance between tackling the problems which are urgent for the people, and that could be resolved and could by activities which could have benefits in a short or mid-term time horizon. I think firstly make the people feel that this plan is designed for them, but there should be also, let's say, the vision which says, okay, we should change our city, we should change our approach in let's say, organizing the mobility in the modes, let's say also in generating the mobility, because mobility is in fact just a result of human activities and on the places where they live. So I think if the plan is, I say, embedded in reality, but in fact tries to shift the reality to, I would say, to a better stage, then it could work. In fact, I don't think that it's a result of, let's say, hostility against cyclists in Prague, but it's a problem. I think it's a result of inability to resolve problem with so-called cycling activities which are connected with tourists. Firstly, there were these segways. Then there are, let's say, the electrocycles, or these, in fact, motorcycles, but it's declared that it's not a motorcycle. It's just a, let's say, a vehicle, and due to I would say slightly inappropriate legal definitions of these activities, the Prague in fact said, well, we will forbid everything which is connected, which could be connected with cycling. It's in the center. I think it's very very bad and misconceived decision, and hope that this will change. Yeah, I think first of all, I wish that the prosperity program will, let's say, fulfill its objectives, and as, let's say, support of the development of the SUMPs, and that it will be, in fact, have, let's say, very positive collateral effects in, let's say, in the awareness of the city, or in the, let's say, custom of the cities to, let's say, to perceive the mobility not just as a solution of let's say, transport, but as a, in fact, to understand it as a also part of or important part of, let's say, the overall culture of the city and quality of life of its inhabitants. I think that financial support to the cities would be, of course, I would say, very good, let's say, impetus for some of them, especially say the smaller ones, to create SUMPs, and it could, I think, enhance the work of the let's say, officials which are responsible for the transport and mobility in the city administration, to persuade the politics to decide on let's say, development of the SUMP. This is, I think, could be good. Secondly, I think that it could it should support, let's say, creation of, let's say, more, let's say, administratively embedded structures for methodological support of creating SUMPs, of assessment the SUMPs and so on. That this work should not be based solely on let's say, either commission of 7 people of the Ministry of Transport, or let's say, the researchers involved in the project. So that it should become, let's say, it should support to become, let's say, a structure of let's say, public administration. Yeah, despite the work of some cities have begun already, let's say, 5 or maybe 10 years ago, it was, in fact, something really new for a lot of them. So in fact, this we could not wait for establishing any, I would say, detailed procedures and detailed guidelines and so on. We just have to start working with the cities and from, let's say, smaller steps get to the creation and in fact assessment of the SUMPs, despite it's also something very new for us.